Today we'll be discussing The Dirt, and we'll also be discussing life and life in the 2010s in general. I personally believe the film's poor recollection of Motley Crue in the 80s is a product of the world that we are living in today. Whether millennials like it or not, musicians of the 1980s and the culture of the 1980s influenced them greatly. The way pop music is perceived comes from this, and emo and metalcore comes directly from heavy metal music. The way pop music is perceived comes from this, and emo and metalcore comes directly from heavy metal music. From the 1950s and onwards, there was a youth-oriented culture, but the 1980s is more similar to how it is now or how it used to be. In the 2010s, they focus more on young adults, but not teenagers. Debbie Gibson, an 80s teen icon, released Electric Youth in the late 80s, so the connection is deeper than you think. What the hell was that move?
Action.
Millennials ain't got no respect for the 80s. There's two spectrums of this. There's one, they treat it as a joke. The other, they treat it as an aesthetic. Millennials dismiss anything that's not theirs. They treat it as it's backwards or inferior to them. Like they ain't got no respect for it, okay? They don't have it, okay? They don't. Okay? Okay. Look at the Netflix series Stranger Things. It is a sci-fi show that takes place in the 80s. Now, I'm not calling anyone involved in the show disingenuous, but their fans definitely are. They're treating it like a piece of jewelry. Like it's something to show off. Like it's a fad. Just a look in general. And that's not really what it is. It's just paying homage to the 80s, and they're treating it like how 70s people treated bell bottoms. Times were different. Millennials can't even begin to understand the way culture was, because now people are harsh and rigid, but they are soft at the same time. I talked about this in a previous episode. Millennials are judgmental, and if you don't agree with them, then they basically dismiss you. The 80s was a high point in human society, and it was a lot more enjoyable than now, although it had its problems. Like, for example, kids' movies. You can't even put one on without getting some political mumbo jumbo, okay? Millennials already have a hard time fathoming the 80s and the hair metal scene, and The Dirt just made the situation worse. A movie made in the 2010s is going to feel like the 2010s, and millennials do not know how to disassociate. It's not obvious, but the way they showed the raunchiness of the Crue, it was more like they were knocking or condemning it, and just because a man's having fun, it's an issue. It's very millennial and is very now. The members of Motley Crue have more distinctive personalities, and this movie should have made it more prevalent. The story felt like a generic mold for any rock band in any era, while it should have been hand-tailored for Motley Crue. I'm going to end on this note. This was a chance for millennials to walk away with a message. A message to show Motley Crue in the 80s in a truthful and authentic light. But instead, it validated their false and insulting thoughts. This generation is a vacant shell that absorbs the stupidity around it. Tune in next week. This was Esperanza. Like, subscribe, comment. See you next Wednesday. Hallelujah.